You know, when I think back to my first investment, I remember the feeling more than the specifics. I was nervous, excited, a little confused, and I made mistakes, a lot of them. But those mistakes taught me something important. They taught me that investing isn't about being clever. It's about being careful. It's about thinking clearly when everyone else is caught up in emotion. If you're at the beginning of your investment journey, right now in 2026, you're probably feeling some of that same nervousness. Maybe you've saved up a little money. Maybe you've been reading articles online. Maybe you've overheard friends talking about stocks, crypto, or real estate, and now you're wondering, where do I actually start? That's a good question. It's the right question. Your first investment matters more than you might think. Not because it will make you rich overnight. It won't, but because it sets the tone for everything that comes after. It shapes your habits, your mindset, your relationship with money. So, let's talk about how to choose that first investment the right way. Not the exciting way, not the way that earns clicks on social media, but the right way. The first thing you need to understand is this. Investing is not gambling. I know that sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people treat it like gambling. They put money into something they don't understand just because someone said it would go up. That's not investing, that's hoping. And hope is not a strategy. When you invest, you're putting your money to work. You're buying a piece of something, a business, a property, a bond, and you're betting that over time will be worth more than it is today. But here's the key. You have to understand what you're buying. You have to know why it might be worth more later. If you can't explain it simply, you probably shouldn't buy it. Warren Buffett has a rule. Never invest in a business you can't understand. That doesn't mean you need to be an expert. It means you should be able to explain, in plain language, how the business makes money, where its revenue comes from, and why people would keep buying its products or services 5 years from now, or 10 years from now. If you can't do that, walk away. There will always be another opportunity. Always. Now, I know what you're thinking. Everyone talks about understanding what you invest in, but how do you actually do that when you're just starting out, when everything feels complicated and overwhelming? Here's what I suggest. Start with what you know. Look around your own life. What products do you use every day? What companies do you interact with? What businesses seem solid, stable, even boring? Boring is good. Boring means consistent. Boring means people need it. Whether the economy is booming or struggling, focus on the basics. Food, healthcare, utilities, technology you actually use, not technology that just sounds exciting. Technology that solves a real problem for millions of people. The kind of company that, if it disappeared tomorrow, you would notice. You'd miss it. That's a good starting point, because if you understand why you use something, you can start to understand why millions of other people might use it too. And if millions of people use it and keep using it, that business probably has value. But understanding a business is only part of the equation. You also need to understand yourself. And this is where most people go wrong. They don't think about risk, or they think about it in the wrong way. Risk isn't just the chance that you'll lose money. Risk is also the chance that you'll panic and sell at the wrong time. Risk is also the chance that you'll need that money before your investment has time to grow. Risk is emotional, it's personal, and it's different for everyone. Before you invest a single dollar, ask yourself this. Can I afford to lose this money? Not in theory, in reality. If this investment went to zero tomorrow, would it hurt? Would it damage your life? Would you lose sleep? If the answer is yes, you're not ready to invest that money yet. I don't care how good the opportunity looks. If losing it would cause you real pain, don't invest it. Keep it in a savings account and build up a bigger cushion first. There's no shame in doing that. In fact, that's smart. That's what protecting capital looks like. Once you know you can afford to invest, the next question is time. How long can you leave this money alone? A year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. This matters more than almost anything else because the stock market, real estate, even bonds, all fluctuate in the short term, sometimes dramatically. If you need your money back in a year, you might be forced to sell at exactly the wrong time, when prices are down, when everyone is panicking, and that's how a temporary loss becomes a permanent one. But if you can leave your money invested for 5, 10, or 20 years, those short-term swings suddenly matter far less. They're just noise. Over long periods, Good investments tend to rise, not in a straight line, never in a straight line, but the overall trend is upward. So, before choosing your first investment, figure out your timeline and be honest with yourself. If you think you might need this money soon, maybe your first investment shouldn't be stocks. Maybe it should be a high-yield savings account or a short-term bond. Something stable, something accessible without risking a major loss. There's nothing wrong with starting small and safe. In fact, that's exactly how you should start. The real goal of your first investment isn't to get rich. It's to learn, to build confidence, to understand how it feels, to watch your money grow slowly over time, to resist checking it every day, and to remain calm when it drops. Those are skills, and like any skill, you improve with practice. So start with something you can afford to lose, that you can leave alone for a long time, and that you actually understand. Now, let's talk about what not to do, because sometimes knowing what to avoid is just as important as knowing what to choose. Don't chase whatever is hot right now. I can't stress this enough. Every year, there's something everyone is talking about. A few years ago, it was certain tech stocks, then crypto, then meme stocks, then AI stocks. By the time you hear about it and see it all over the news, by the time your friends are talking about it, you're probably late. The big gains have already occurred, and you're just as likely to lose money as to make it. This doesn't mean you can never invest in something trendy, but it does mean you need to be extra careful. Ask harder questions. Is this real value or just hype? Will it matter in 10 years? Or is it just excitement that will fade? Most of the time, the answer is it's just excitement. And excitement is expensive. You end up paying high prices for something that might not last. That's not investing, that's speculating. And speculation is fine if you know that's what you're doing, if you're only using money you can lose, and if you're honest about the odds. But for your first investment, I'd stay away from it entirely. Instead, look for boring, look for steady. Look for companies that have been around for decades, that make products people need, not just want, that have survived recessions and market crashes, and come out the other side. Those companies might not double overnight, but they're far less likely to disappear overnight. Another thing to avoid, don't try to time the market. I know it's tempting. You see the news talking about a crash coming, a recession, or interest rates, and you think, maybe I should wait. Maybe I should invest next month, next year, when things look better. Here's the problem. Nobody knows. Nobody knows when the market will rise or fall. Not the experts on TV, not the analysts, not me, not you. And if you wait for the perfect moment, you'll probably wait forever, because there's always something to worry about. There's always a reason to postpone. The best time to start investing was 10 years ago. The second best time is today, not when the market seems safe, not when everyone is optimistic. Today, as long as your plan is long-term and you understand what you're buying, the exact day you begin doesn't matter nearly as much as you think. So, what does a good first investment actually look like? Let me give you some examples, not recommendations. Just examples to guide your thinking. One option is a low-cost index fund, a fund that owns small pieces of hundreds or thousands of companies. You're not betting on a single company. You're betting on the economy as a whole. Over time, economies grow, businesses expand, and if you own a piece of that growth, your investment grows too. The beauty of an index fund is its simplicity. You don't need to pick stocks, research individual companies, or worry that you picked the wrong one. You're spreading your risk across the market, and the fees are usually very low, which means more growth stays in your pocket. This is what I'd recommend to most beginners. It's not flashy, but it works, and allows you to focus on habits that matter, investing consistently, staying invested, and not panicking. Another option, if you want to own individual companies, is to start with one or two that you truly understand. Companies you use, companies you believe in. But here's the key. Don't put all your money into a single stock. That's risky. Even great companies can have bad years or decades. If you plan to own individual stocks, you need several, at least 5. 10 is better. That way, if one performs poorly, it won't ruin you. When selecting companies, think long-term. Ask yourself, will people still be using this product in 10, 20 years? Is the company profitable? Does it hold more cash than debt? Is it growing, even slowly? You don't need to find the next big thing. You just need solid businesses that will remain around when you retire. That's enough. You might also consider bonds, especially if you're older or more conservative. Bonds are loans. You lend money to a government or company and they pay interest. They are generally safer than stocks. They don't grow as much, but they also don't fall as much. For a first investment, a bond or a bond fund can provide stability while you learn. What matters most isn't what you choose. It's why you choose it and how you behave afterward. Here's the truth no one likes to discuss. The greatest risk to your investment isn't the market. It's you. It's your emotions. It's the voice in your head telling you to sell when prices drop or buy more when they soar. That voice can cost you more than any market crash ever could. Investing is simple, but not easy. The difficult part is staying calm, remaining patient, ignoring the noise, not checking your account every day, avoiding panic when you see red, and resisting greed when you see green. That's why starting small is crucial. You need to learn how your emotions respond. You need to experience what it feels like when your investment drops 10, 20%, because it will, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but eventually it will. When it happens, you must know you can handle it, that you won't sell, that you'll stick to the plan. If you begin with more money than you can afford to lose, you won't learn this lesson. You'll panic and sell, and then fear trying again. But starting small lets you practice, lets you build that muscle, the muscle that allows you to stay calm when everyone else panics. And that muscle, that ability to remain composed, is worth more than any stock tip or insider knowledge. It's the difference between people who build wealth steadily over decades and those who jump in and out, never really getting anywhere. So, let's talk about what happens after you make your first investment, because that's when the real work begins. You need a plan, not a complicated plan, just a simple one. How much will you invest each month? Every month, whether the market goes up or down. This is called dollar cost averaging, and it's one of the best strategies for beginners. You invest a fixed amount on a regular schedule. When prices are high, you buy less. When prices are low, you buy more. Over time, it smooths out the bumps. And you need rules. Rules for when you'll check your account. Once a month is plenty. Once a quarter is even better. And rules for when you'll sell. Not when you're scared, not when you're excited, but only when your situation changes, when you need the money or when the fundamentals of the investment change. Not because of feelings. You also need to keep learning. Read books, not about getting rich quick, but about investing principles, about how markets work, and about psychology and behavior. The more you understand, the less intimidating it all becomes, and the better decisions you'll make. But don't let learning become an excuse not to start. I see this all the time. People who read, research, and plan for years, but never actually invest. They wait until they feel like they know enough, until they feel ready. Here's the secret. You'll never feel completely ready. There will always be more to learn. At some point, you just have to start. Even if it's small, even if it's imperfect. It's better to start with a simple index fund today than to wait 5 years for the perfect stock pick. Because those 5 years of compounding growth, you can't get them back. Time is your biggest advantage when you're young. Don't waste it. Now, I want to address something that might be on your mind. What about all the new stuff? Crypto, NFTs, SPACs, whatever comes next. Should you invest in those? My answer is this. Maybe eventually, but not as your first investment. Those are speculative. They're volatile, and they require a different level of understanding and risk tolerance. Once you build a solid foundation and have a core portfolio of stable investments, then maybe you set aside a small amount to speculate with. 5% of your portfolio, 10% at most, money you can afford to lose completely. But don't start there. Don't put your first $1,000 into something that might not exist in 5 years. Start with the boring stuff, the stuff that's been around, the stuff that works. I know that's not exciting. I know it doesn't make for good stories at parties, but it makes for a good retirement, a good future, financial security. And in the end, that's what matters. One more thing to remember. Your first investment is just that, your first. It's not your last. You're not locked in forever. You can change your mind, adjust, learn, grow, and shift your strategy as you go. The important thing is to take that first step. Move from thinking about investing to actually doing it. Because every wealthy person you admire, every successful investor, they all started somewhere. They all made their first investment. And I guarantee most of them made mistakes, bought the wrong thing, sold the wrong time, lost money, but they kept going. They learned. They got better. That's what I want for you. Not perfection, but progress. Not a home run on your first try, just a solid single. Get on base. Start the journey. Build the habit. Trust the process. The stock market has been around for hundreds of years. It survived wars, depressions, panics, and crashes. And through all of that, it's trended upward. Not every day, not every year, but over decades it goes up. That's not luck. That's the power of human innovation, of businesses creating value, of economy growing. When you invest, you're betting on that. You're betting that people will continue creating, building, and solving problems. That's a good bet, maybe the best bet there is. So, here's what I want you to do. Take a breath. Stop rushing. Stop worrying that you're too late or that you've missed out. You haven't. Sit down and figure out how much you can afford to invest. Money you won't need for at least 5 years. Then figure out what you understand, what makes sense to you, what you can explain to someone else. Start there. Keep it simple. Invest regularly. Don't check it every day. Don't panic. Don't get greedy. Just stay the course, year after year after year. Let time do the heavy lifting. That's how you choose your first investment the right way. Not by finding the hottest stock, not by timing the market perfectly, but by thinking clearly, acting carefully, and trusting that patience and consistency will compound into something meaningful. You've got this. You really do. Just take it one step at a time.